he has been doing this, doing for us, and also doing for all many other temples. Prabhu has a website, like a Facebook page. You can join in Facebook, and different topics. He gives classes in English and also in Hindi. This class will continue for about an hour. And at the end of the class, Prabhu will take some questions if he has time at this point. So please come up with the questions. And today's class is very interesting topic. The topic is ego's ultimate disappointment, as it did from Bhagavad Gita 2.71. Maybe Prabhu will touch upon that. And also know that this class will be posted on YouTube, WhatsApp, and on our website. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining class today. And over to you, Prabhu. Rohinipriya, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I'm very happy to once again connect with all the devotees from ISKCON Scarborough Yatra. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Today, the topic is about the false ego, which generally in our scriptures we address as the ego. And we also understand that it is important for us to let go of the false ego. The problem is that in this material world, because we have this material body, we have material senses, we have the mind, which has so many impressions, and we have so much data and information for our intelligence to process regarding material affairs, that we really need to be very inspired to look through all this material facade or this material arrangement. We really need to open our eyes to do that. Hence, we pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to the spiritual masters that they open our eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya. Excuse me. So the eyes need to be open, and then the eyes also, or when we want to have good vision, then we need our eyes, and the eyes need to be healthy, the eyes need to be open and focused, and at the same time, the eyes need to be comfortable. There cannot be any inconvenience caused to them, so they have to be comfortable. Typically, Corellium which is called as, in India, we call it as kajal, many parts of India. Is a black ointment that you apply to the inner linings of the eye, the openings of the eye. You apply it there because that makes the eye very comfortable. So Jnananjana Shalakaya is typically what it refers to is making the eyes comfortable by such an ointment. The coralline that is applied to the eye linings. The eyelid, it is applied to the linings of the eyelids. So that is the coralline. That makes the eye comfortable. Chakshur unmilitam yena tasmai shri gurave namah. So comfortable. However, it needs to be opened to have proper vision. So it needs to be taught or trained to see that which is important. So chakshur unmilitam means the eyes have to be opened to proper vision. Ajnana timira means since the material existence is based on the foundation of ignorance of the existence of Krishna, or the ignorance of how Krishna is the be all and end all. He is the beginning and the middle and the end of everything. Not being aware of it or consciously being unaware of it is called as timara andhasya, deep darkness, dense darkness. So it is important that we understand philosophy, or we have another perspective, hopefully a better perspective or a higher perspective in the human form of life. These perspectives, which are addressed by adjectives like another perspective, better perspective, alternate perspectives, or higher perspective, all these adjectives, when they're used, we can address them by the term spiritual understanding. So spiritual understanding basically refers to these various adjectives for perspectives, the kind of vision that one should have in the human form of life. So spiritual upliftment is important in the human form of life. What are the challenges? What could be considered to be the challenges? So in the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj, this is very nicely put forth. He says, Balasya neha sharanam pitaro nrisingha nartasya chagadam udanvati majjatano taptasya tat pratividheya hanjasheshtas tavad vibho tanubhritam tvadupekshitanam. So Prahlad Maharaj says, tvadupekshitanam. This is the verse from the 7th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying that being ignorant of Krishna or being ignorant of our spiritual existence, we neglect upekshita. Upekshita means neglect. What do we neglect? We neglect how important it is in the human form of life to be conscious of one's actions, knowing very well that there are reactions. Now, this consciousness is well established if we understand that Krishna is our loving Lord, and he is all powerful and all merciful. If we understand that, then we are ready to accept Krishna, and we are ready to accept a lifestyle that is centered around Krishna. So such a kind of lifestyle is called as Krishna consciousness. However, Tvad upekshitana, it is so very easy to be negligent. Why is it easy to be negligent? Negligence comes when we feel our negligence is expressed towards those objects or those situations in life which we consider to be less important or not important at all. That is why we become negligent. For example, when we are on the road driving, and we kind of become a little, let's say, relaxed or inattentive. So, although we are still keeping our hands on the steering wheel and we are still keeping our eyes on the road, the mind is not connected to the eyes or to our external senses, and we become negligent of the fact that it is very important that while we are in a moving vehicle and we have the steering wheel in our hands, we become negligent to this fact that it is so very important to be aware that the steering wheel is in our hands, to be aware of the road in front of us. So although the eyes are open and the hands are on the steering wheel, the mind is absorbed in some other topic. The mind is somewhere else. And what happens? There is an accident. So that is negligence. So tvat upekshitanam basically means that in Hindi, in India, in India, the trucks, the lorries, they sometimes have very philosophical sayings on their right next to their registration plates, on the back of the truck. So savdhani hati durghatana ghati. As soon as you're negligent, there is the possibility, it increases the possibility of having an accident. Upekshitanam, negligence. As soon as the mind becomes absorbed elsewhere. Now, it is common sense to understand that we actually have our lives actually is in a very precarious situation, because the life can end without any prior notice. A life can come to an end. It could be a physical end, or we could lose our mental capacities, or we could lose, have some, let's say, physical inability attacking us. So physically or mentally, the kind of life we know can be lost at any moment. So it is a very precarious situation that we are in. Still, what is our situation? So in the words of Prahlad Maharaj says that people in this world, they feel that they are safe because they have taken shelter of a few things in life. The first shelter that they have is that if they have any material suffering, if there is some artha, material suffering in terms of challenges in life, like financial challenges or relationship issues, they think that this can be relieved by some endeavor in our material life. For example, if one is sick, then one can take some medicine to cure our sickness. Or if one has godfathers or godmothers, we have godparents. Basically, we have somebody who assures us that don't worry, I'm there to take care of you. So we feel sheltered like that. So these shelters, like medicine, can give us definitely relief. A more powerful person, for example, a godparent, can indeed give us some shelter. And if one is a small child, then one's parents, a mother or a father, gives us protection. So yes, there is some element of shelter or protection there. However, it is temporary because time changes everything. Time brings about a change. Time kind of causes destruction moment by moment. So what we have now will be gone in the next moment. What is another kind of shelter? So sometimes life becomes very troublesome. So the analogy is given that let's suppose we are in the middle of an ocean and we are surrounded, and well, if we are in the middle of an ocean, even if we are a good swimmer, if we have to stay in the ocean for a long time just by our physical ability to be able to swim, we may not be safe. The one of the safest positions in the ocean is to be in a boat. So when one is in a boat in the middle of the ocean, then one feels secure. So Prahlad Maharaj says that these kind of securities are actually very bewildering or illusory, because a boat by the influence of time can decay. Medicine at one point of time is ineffective. If the body is not able to digest the medicine, then the medicine is basically ineffective. See, when we take medicine, it has to be, it has to kind of be assimilated in the body. So if the body does not have that energy or strength, medicine is not helpful. Hence, when a person is really very old or invalid, the physician says that, yeah, medicines are not working because the person is not able to assimilate the medicine within their physical body. So that is illusory. A boat can decay, and parents can only give, or a godparent can only give so much protection. So the Prahlad Maharaj is saying that, my dear Nrsingadev, balasya neha sharanam pitarau nasangha. Oh my Nrsingadev, because of these childish mentality, or because of this ignorance, a living entity somehow or the other overlooks the fact that you are the real shelter. You are the person who is giving us the shelter of the boat. You are the person who is giving us the shelter of a family. You are the person who is creating all these herbs from which we get medicine. You are the cause of all. You are the source of everything. So this is a very terrible oversight on the part of living entities. Hence, having forgotten you, when the living entities take shelter of such temporary means, they actually simply achieve suffering in life. Hence, all of their endeavors for self-protection ultimately is limited, or it is temporary. Sometimes it is outright useless, all of the efforts that the living entity makes for one's self-protection. So, dear Lord, you kindly become compassionate on us. You please give us shelter, despite our inertia, despite our conscious decision to not take complete shelter of you. Despite that, my dear Lord, you are the Supreme Lord. You are supremely independent. So you please continue giving your mercy on conditioned souls like us. So this is very important to understand. We read and we hear from the scriptures. Prahlad Maharaj's prayers are really very beautiful, and when we read them, it moves us. Unfortunately, there are so many other moments in life where these prayers they kind of are forgotten, or they are not in the forefront of our memory. These prayers are not there. Therefore, a lifetime of training, a lifetime of strict observance of spiritual practices is needed. We can begin small. We can begin with a couple of hours of dedicating a couple of hours every day of dedicated spiritual practices. We can do that. We can begin small. And slowly, we should be courageous enough to take bigger steps. We should try over a decade or 2 decades, over 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of our spiritual practices, or even 5 years of our spiritual practice. the more the number of years we spend on a Krishna consciousness, we should be able to dedicate more and more time, and we should feel comfortable doing that. Why is that? Because we need to train ourselves. We need to find ways to promote ourselves in our spiritual practices. And one of the ways we promote ourselves, one of the ways we go to higher levels of spiritual practice is through dedicating more time. So not immediately, maybe after 5 or 10 years of dedicating 2 hours or 3 hours regularly, and maybe a little more time over the weekends. After 10 years or after 15 years, we should feel comfortable giving at least another couple of hours or another hour of a day. And after 30 years or 40 years, if Krishna is, if we still have these number of human years, then we should try and think very deeply that why not put in another 6 to 12 hours every day in our spiritual practices. By the time we are in our 50s or in our 60s, maybe that is what we should be doing. Why is that? Because we open our eyes, we change our perspective, we have this higher perspective in life. We need to do that as humans because we have this rational intelligence. We need to do that. We have to use our intelligence accordingly. I still understand from the various experiences that we have had in our spiritual, in our human existence. I understand personally that there are challenges. Whether we are in our 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s, there are still challenges to be able to do that. And where is the challenge coming from? The challenge is coming from our inability to accept the fact that, or to surrender to the fact, or to be more amiable to the fact that we need to advance or we need to seek promotions in our spiritual practices. And this challenge is typically called as the ego. What the ego simply means is that we are fixated in a particular understanding of our existence or personality. We are fixated in that. That is the ego. So the ego can manifest in arrogance. It could manifest in very harsh dealings with others. Those are the manifestations of the ego. And such a person may be called as egoistic. However, ego is simply our fixated understanding of who we are. And if that fixated understanding is that we are the eternal servant of Krishna and the servant of the Supreme Lord, who's served by so many devotees, then it is helpful. However, if the fixated ego is anything else, then it becomes a challenge to us finding inspiration over so many years of a practice of Krishna consciousness. I would like to now tell you a story. However, before I tell you a story, just a very inspirational quote is that a bad day for our ego is a great day for us. When we say us, we mean spirit soul. So maybe I should just say that a bad day for our ego is a good day for the soul. So this is very helpful. When we say ego here, we mean the false ego. So let me tell you a story which will help us, which will help us connect the instruction given by Prahlad Maharaj and the prayer that Prahlad Maharaj is offering to Lord Nrsimha. He's asking Lord Nrsimha Dev to please continue bestowing his mercy on all of us. The Supreme Lord is always merciful, without a doubt. So this story will help us connect the two, that how we become comfortable finding temporary shelters in our life, and the Supreme Lord is being very merciful, still is sending out messages to us. He's still trying to reach us out of his mercy. There was once a saint who traveled to a holy place, and there he was very happy to be in the holy tirth, in the holy dham, the holy place. And since he was going to spend some time there, he found shelter at an ashram. So this ashram building, a monastery. So the manager of the monastery welcomed him. He saw the saint and was very much touched by him. So he welcomed him into his monastery, and he gave him a room to stay. So the monastery was on two levels. The lower level, which in India we call as the ground floor, and the upper level, the first floor. Or here in the US, I think we call it as, and in Canada, North America, I think we call it as the first floor and the second floor, the first level and the second level. And the upper level had other tourists, or spiritual tourists, as we say, people who have come to the holy dham for some blessings. So the upper level was full, and it was overcrowded, and one gentleman had to move in with the saint in his room for his duration of stay. So now the saint was living with this person. Now in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam Yasyam Jagriti Sanyam. Tasyam Jagriti Sanyami. So what is considered to be night for the ordinary materialistic living entities is day for the self-realized person. And Yasyam Jagrati Sanyami Tasyam Tyanisha. Sorry. Okay, right now I'm mixing up my verse, so it will come to me later, a little later. Sorry for that. Anyways, that which is night for the saintly person is day for the materialistic beings, and that which is day for the saintly person is night for the living entities. Yeah, Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam Yashyam Jagriti Sanyami Sa Nisha Yasyam Jagrati Bhutanam Sa Nisha Pashyato Munehe. I'm so sorry. This is the verse, so it comes back to me. So Yasyam Jagrati Bhutanam Sa Nisha Pashyato Munehe. So when the living entities, what they consider to be Yasyam Jagrati Bhutanam, what they consider to be day, Sa Nisha Pashyato Munehe. Sa Nisha Pashyato. So that is seen as night by the Munehe, by the self-realized soul. And so what is seen as day is seen as night by the self-realized soul. And Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam. And that which is night for the living entity, Tasyam Jagrati Sanyam. The self-realized soul is awake at that time. So that is the verse from Bhagavad Gita. So this gentleman who was living with this saintly personality had a difficulty staying with him. The reason being that he would stay up late with the other people in his group, and then he would come down to sleep like about 3 o'clock at night or 2 o'clock at night. And as he was about to go into deep sleep in an hour or so, you'd hear the saints chanting the holy names of the Lord, and he would have to wake up. So he became very disturbed, and he told the saintly personality that, why are you being so very inconsiderate? And the saintly personality very humbly replied that, I'm so very sorry. However, it is my nature to constantly remember the Supreme Lord. And so this person then, being irritated, the gentleman, he asked the saint that, why is it necessary to remember the Lord always? And the saint said that because he provides for us. And we are completely dependent on him. And the man said, that is not true. I don't agree. If I don't want to do anything, the Supreme Lord cannot, the Lord cannot force me to do it. And the saintly personality said that actually everything is done under the direction of the Supreme Lord. So if you, my understanding is, the saint said humbly that my understanding is that the Supreme Lord actually is the doer. So the gentleman became very irritated, and he said that if I don't want to eat and I don't open my mouth, I don't eat and consume food, then how will your Lord make me do it? Do you think he's going to come personally and do it? And the saint said, well, if you don't want to eat and the Lord wants you to eat, then you will have to eat. So this man took this as a challenge. He said, all right, I accept this challenge, although the saint wasn't giving him this challenge. So he just kind of looked at it as a challenge himself, and he said that tomorrow, the whole day, I'm going to fast. And if by the next day morning, I have totally fasted from food and water, then will you accept that the Lord cannot force me to eat if I don't want to eat? And the saint said, well, I know that if the Lord wants you to eat, then you will have to eat. However, if you want to challenge the Lord, then it is up to you. So he said, yes, I will prove it to you. The gentleman said that I will prove it to you that this won't happen. So he took this challenge very seriously. Oh. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, welcome back. Yeah, we can see you here now.
I'm so sorry.
Everything is good.
Yeah. My cell phone sometimes behaves awkwardly.
It happens, bro.
Yeah. So yes, so he took it up as a challenge, and he decided to go to a remote place in the forest and hide himself. So according to his intelligence, he thought that maybe I should just climb a tree and hide myself there amongst the dense foliage. So he climbed up a very tall banyan tree, and it was very dense. And he climbed as far as he could to the top, and he hid there. And he was very true to his word, because he knew that the Supreme Lord is everywhere, and he had to be careful that he does not try any tricks on him. So he stayed hidden. So the morning passed, it became afternoon. He was feeling hungry, but still he somehow or the other controlled his urges, and he stayed there on the tree. It was late afternoon, and he thought that, oh, this is going good. Almost half the day is done, and I'm secure. At that point of time, somewhere in the late afternoon, some travelers from the they were passing through. They were coming from a marketplace. They were all traders. So they came to this forest, and they knew that their journey would be long, so they wanted to just cook food and eat. So they had all the ingredients for cooking. So they sat down and right under the tree, and they started cooking. And the flavor and the fragrance reached up to the man, and the man was really feeling very much attracted to the food that was being cooked, but he held back. He said, no, I have to just stay away from food. So he controlled his urges. He could see the wonderful preparations that they were making, and he just shut his eyes, and he kind of held his nose like this, so that he could just breathe, or he put his hand over his nose. He did not want to be affected by the fragrance of the wonderful preparations that those people had made. So the people, they made their food, they cooked their food, the traders, and they did the offering, and then they had their early supper. And they also prepared a lot of ingredients, food preparations that they could carry with them for the night, because their journey would be overnight, and they would reach their destination the next day. So they used this time to make those preparations. And so they made those food preparations to carry with them, and they tied up all of these preparations in various bags. At that moment, there was a huge commotion. Somebody came running, and he said that there are dacoits coming this way, and they're chasing us, so run for your lives. So all of these traders, they ran for their lives. They left behind all of that food preparation, and they left. So now this man was alone, and he really was feeling very hungry, and he looked at all those bags, the cloth bags, and the other bags, the containers that were filled with food, and he knew what was in it. However, he found the strength to not come down and eat it. Meanwhile, the dacoits came running through, and the dacoits found the food, and they were very excited. And some of them really were. They were about to eat the food. However, the leader of the dacoits, he warned them that, hey, there is this food right here in the middle of the forest, and there's no one around. It is quite possible that somebody wants to cheat us. It could be poison. So the dacoits, they became, they did not eat the food. So what should we do? So they said that if this food has been cooked, then the person or the persons who have cooked this food must be right around here. So they started looking for somebody who would be around there. And this gentleman who was up there in the tree, when he realized that the dacoits are now searching and there are chances that they could find him, he became scared. He lost his grip and he was about to slip. So to stop his fall, he moved his limbs, and there was some rustling up there, some noise. So the dacoits looked up and they saw him hiding there. So then the leader of the dacoits said, see, this is the person, and he knew that we are coming here, and therefore he has poisoned this food, and he is wanting to loot us. So we must punish this fellow. So they called out to him to come down, and they said that if he doesn't come down himself, then they would force him to come down and they would really torture him. So out of fear, the gentleman comes down the tree. And they ask him, so who are you and why are you here? So he tells them his story. They don't believe his story. So they say, all right, if what you say is true. He tells them the story about how the traders were there and they were cooking and they ran away. So they say, okay, so if you have not prepared the food and they have, and you want us to believe you, then why don't you eat the food and prove it to us that it's not poisoned? And the man said, no, I cannot eat the food. And this made the dacoits more suspicious. So they said, hey, this person is not speaking the truth, and we should throw away all this food and we should kill him also, because obviously he's poisoned it, and he's not, he's our enemy. So they were about to kill him. That is when the man said, please listen to my story. He said, no story. Either you prove to us that the food is not poisoned or you die. So the man was forced to eat the food. And then he told them the story about how he had accepted that challenge. And the dacoits, they were like, when they saw that he had eaten the food, he had partaken, of all the food items, preparations that were there, and it was all right. They were convinced. So they said, all right, we are convinced that you're telling us a true story. Now run away from here and don't challenge God. That is what the dacoits told him. So he goes back to the saint and he tells him that actually what you said is true. And now I realize that how foolish I have been. And this has been an eye-opener for me. So kindly give me further instructions. And the gentleman, he had a complete change. It was a life-changing moment for him, game changer, as you say. So he became actually a very, very well-renowned saint in India. So we see that from the story, we see that how Krishna is so merciful, and at the same time, we see that because of our ignorance, we sometimes challenge the ability of God. Because of ignorance, we sometimes have more faith in our own abilities than the abilities of the Supreme Absolute Truth. And why is that? The ego. So there is another wonderful quote which can be inspiring, and it is that we must dissolve our ego before it dissolves our existence or ourself. So we have this short span of human life, and that seems to be our existence right now. And we identify with that, and therefore it seems to be ourself right now. This is who we are. Our passport says that, all our ID cards says that, this is who we are. And in most of our dealings, that is how we introduce ourselves. Even if we are initiated, and the idea is that this 5 foot 8 inches body, or this 50, 60, or 120, 140 pounds, or 50, 60, 70 kilos of this existence is me. I've taken initiation, and my name is so-and-so Das. However, the existence primarily stays the same. The name has changed. Certain parts of the day, we remember that we are actually the servant of the Lord, and the rest of the day, we live our existence according to the physical existence that we have. That I'm a human being, and I am this body. We live according to that. So unless and until we dissolve our ego, this fixated understanding of our physical existence, unless and until we dissolve our ego, we are in a very dangerous situation. Hence, we must dissolve our ego, and the practice of Krishna consciousness trains us in this process. So dissolve our ego before it dissolves our existence. In Mukundamala Stotra, King Kulashekar has prayed wonderfully, which this prayer is very helpful because it keeps us inspired. Idam shariram parinam peshalam patanta vashyam shatasandhi jarjaram kimoshadam prichhasi moodha durmate niramayam krishna rasayanam piba. King Kulashekar is praying that there is something known as Krishna Rasayanam. And this Krishna Rasayan is actually prophylactic, and it can be used prophylactically. It can be used as a preventive measure. The preventive measure to prevent what? What is it prophylaxis for? Prophylactic towards the short span of human life that we had. It is a cure, and it also helps us prevent death. Otherwise, idam shariram parinam, if we believe in our existence as a human being, as a physical being, if we believe that that is the be all and end all of our existence, and therefore I eat to exist, I do chanting to exist, or I have relationships to exist. And what is our existence? The physical body. That, oh, this person said this to me, and that person said that to me, or I said to this person, or I said to that person, or this is what happened to me there, and this is what the community has done towards me. All these ideas that me, I, that is all in relationship to the physical existence. But what is this physical existence? Parinama peshalam patante avashyam shata sandhi jarjara. This physical existence ultimately at one point of time will be so very difficult. It will be so very inconvenient because all the joints would have worn out. Oh, again, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
I'm so sorry. Again, I had this issue.
Okay, Prabhu, it happens. We don't have any control over internet, but now we can hear you.
Hare Krishna. Yes. It's somehow my phone is getting heated up, and that is why it stops.
I see. But we are okay now. We see you.
Yes.
We can see you.
Yes. So let me continue. So Krishna Rasayanam Piba. Yeah. So the existence that we have so much faith in, what is its result? Its result is Shata Sandhi Jarjaram. The body is going to be, it is going to decay, and then it is going to be very painful existence in one sense, because all the limbs, all the bones, all the joints, they are going to be worn out, and they're going to be more prone to disease, and more prone to physical issues. And finally, Parinam Peshalam, ultimately it is going to just turn to a skeleton. It is going to become just a skeleton, or turn into dust. So Krishna Rasayanam is Krishna Rasayan, the elixir of the holy name of Krishna, Piba. By drinking this, the holy names of Krishna, or by hearing and chanting the nectarian glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, we actually are taking prophylactic treatment. What is a treatment? What is a so it is, or we are actually taking a preventive measure. What is a preventive measure? That the body may go through its changes. However, with the end of the body, or with the deterioration of the body, we do not become affected, which means that we actually transcend the physical challenges. Hence, Niramayam Krishna Rasayanam. This is Krishna Rasayan. It is not only helpful at the time of death, it is also helpful during life. It prevents death in the sense that we, after the physical body dies, we achieve eternal life. And even while we are in the physical body, we are able to transcend the limitations of the physical body. Hence, Niramayam. It is prophylactic medicine. Niramayam. For this to happen, to be able to believe in Kulashekar Maharaj's instructions, or in Kulashekar Maharaj's guidelines, one has to be philosophically strong. One has to be convinced of the philosophy of life. One has to be convinced of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And this conviction increases. It is inversely proportional to our ego, the fixated understanding of ourselves as our physical existence. See, so as this understanding decreases, as our ego decreases, the more we are able to transcend the material existence. That is the idea. And what helps us decrease our deep connection with the ego? Knowledge. The understanding of philosophy. So knowledge, and the understanding of knowledge, and the application of knowledge helps us achieve that potential. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Lord Chaitanya is not, it is described by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita that when Lord Chaitanya is not very eager or happy, or is not open to meeting Maharaj Pratap Rudra, because he's a king and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a sannyasi, and there are certain protocols. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sees Maharaj Pratap Rudra give up his dress of a king and accept the dress of a menial servant, of a street sweeper, and take the broom in his hand and sweep the street very menially in front of Lord Jagannath's cart, Lord Chaitanya accepted him. He gave him his blessings. He gave him his darshan, his embrace, and he accepted his service. How did that happen? Because Lord Chaitanya could see that the king had, he was practicing the understanding of the philosophy. Sometimes it can be ritualistic. A king can just ritualistically accept the broom in front of Lord Jagannath's cart and do that activity. Just a few strokes of moving the broom here and there and then handing it to someone else. However, King Prataprudra was doing it very mindfully, heartfelt, in a very heartfelt way. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could see that. He could see what others could not see. The other devotees did understand that Maharaj Prataprudra was very much devoted to Lord Chaitanya. It is the Lord who sees that we actually are transforming our lives. The Lord can understand it because He's the Lord within our heart. So he could see that the king had absolutely no ego there. There was no understanding of his physical existence. His only understanding was that I am the servant of the Supreme Lord Sri Jagannath. And it is my great fortune to be sweeping the street, the path on which Lord Jagannath's cart would pass. And why would one want to sweep that? So that the Lord has a very comfortable journey. And by sweeping the street, one clears it of all obstacles for the cart to pass over. So the king did it the entire way, and Lord Chaitanya was very pleased, and he gave his mercy to the king. Hence, when we have knowledge, and when we understand that knowledge, and if for that understanding there is self-understanding, and also if we seek, when we need help, we seek help from those who can help us with understanding. And when we seek help, we can do that in the association of devotees. We can do that by accepting a spiritual master and serving the spiritual master and masters, and accepting siksha from them, accepting instructions from them. So when we deepen our understanding, and with that understanding we transform our lives, our ego leaves, it goes away. And hence it is, somebody very famously said that the moment one becomes aware of the ego in ourselves, strictly speaking, there is no more any ego, but just an old conditioned mind pattern. And with that awareness, we can deal with that old conditioned mind pattern and just trash it away. So the ego and awareness are the opposites of each other. Ego implies unawareness or ignorance, and therefore awareness and ego cannot exist together. Hence, if we are practicing Krishna consciousness, we can say comfortably or confidently that we are actually practicing as long as there is the dawn of awareness, or as long as there is the light of awareness, or the light of transformative understanding. And if we can understand that it is simply a ritual, although we are doing certain practices, however, it can simply be a ritual, which basically means that it is not heartfelt if there is unawareness or lack of knowledge. And unawareness is, it coexists with the ego. Ego and unawareness, or ego and ignorance, go hand in hand. And eternal life and the understanding of being the servant and of the servant of the Supreme Lord Krishna goes hand in hand with enlightenment. So, coming to our title today, ego's ultimate disappointment is an enlightenment. When one is enlightened, ego gets severely disappointed, and ego understands there is no hope, and ego goes away from our lives. And it is very happy ending for us. So enlightenment, which Prabhupada would say, is Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is ego's ultimate disappointment. And in the present age of Kali Yuga, according to the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and as passed down to us through the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, we know that Harer Nam, Aiva Kevalam, Kalau Nasteva, 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 Tir Anyatha. The holy names of the Lord award complete enlightenment. And therefore, with sincerity and deep dedication, we take up to the process of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
That was a wonderful class, Prabhu, and some few things I can remember from your class. You nicely explained. To dedicate time to Krishna, although Krishna says, I am the time I am. In Bhagavad Gita 11:32. So we need to give his time to him, and you are encouraging us to give our time to Krishna. And he also nicely says that how the ego will disappear as soon as we have enlightenment. Wonderful. I think you are saying that ego is inversely proportional to spiritual advancement. That's what I understand. So ego increases, spiritual development goes downwards. Thank you, Prabhu. And also we learned from our class that ego is something that we need to suppress or get rid of. Instead, we need to practice our humility. Thank you, Prabhu, for a wonderful class. Could you kindly explain a little bit more about how the effect of ego increasing and spiritual advancement decreasing? Just in a few short, if you can, if you have time, Prabhu. Thank you.
Excuse me. Hello.
Yes, Prabhu, go ahead.
Maharaj gave a good lecture, but he gave a reference to one book. I want to know the name of the book. Because he was referring to ego or something like this. One word he used is prophylactic. And the other word I don't know, he gave a reference from some book.
Yes, the book is Mukund, it is a prayer composed by King Kulashekar, and it is called as Mukundamala Stotra, and we have it available at our ISKCON bookstores or even the online ISKCON store. Srila Prabhupada has given his translations on it.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
You're welcome. So, Amal Thakur Prabhu, your question, how you were wanting to understand how unawareness leads to increase in ego, or when we do our practice when we do our spiritual practices without being mindful, then how it leads to the increase in ego. That is a question, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So we already have impressions from so many lifetimes, and all these impressions are there in our consciousness, in our present life. These impressions, they create an understanding of our existence. That is why we try to protect ourselves from disease, from hunger, from pain. That is how we try to protect ourselves. When a child does that, as soon as a child is born, the child tries to protect itself. We call it the need of the child, but basically it is trying to preserve and protect one's life as a human being. This is also seen in other species of life. So where does that come from? That instinct come from? In modern day science or modern day understanding, we call it as instinct. It could be animal instinct or human instinct. It comes from, according from the philosophical books, we understand that it comes from our previous lifetimes. We carry some impressions from previous lifetimes. And so there is already the burden of that. We are already carrying the burden of previous lifetimes. Now, if previous lifetimes, if we have performed spiritual practices, those impressions also come through. Now, depending upon the association that we are in, who our parents are, what is the community where we are born, what are the teachings we receive as we are growing up, depending on that, either our understanding of material existence becomes more solidified, that, oh, you're now a student of this grade, you are a member of our community, and oh, you sing very nicely, or you dance very wonderfully, or you have this potential as a sports person, and you can try and develop that potential. So all of these understandings solidify the impression that I am a physical being. However, if the teachings about one's spiritual existence, I'm sorry. Yeah. So if Krishna conscious teachings, let's directly call it Krishna conscious teachings or God conscious teachings, are also given to us, then we also awaken those impressions from previous lifetimes where we have had spiritual practices, and that gives us the ability to have faith in spiritual existence too. So now both of these go along together. Growing up, the kind of growing up, the kind of inputs that we take defines the ambitions that we have in life. Now, so for someone like Prahalad, his ambition is very directly seen, whereas for somebody like Hiranyakashipu, his ambition is very clearly seen. Hiranyakashipu could understand that Lord Vishnu is the root of all existence. However, his ambition is to be better than that. And we see Prahlad Maharaj could understand that Lord Vishnu is the source of everything and he exists everywhere. And his ambition is to become the servant of the Lord and to worship him. So these are two juxtapositions that a living entity can take. And there are so many shades from where Prahlad is to where Hiranyakashipu is. So if Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad is considered to be the North Pole and Hiranyakashipu to be the South Pole. So there is so many positions between the North and the South Pole that the living entity can have. So whenever the balance shifts more towards ambitions of materialistic life with compromising our spiritual practices, that is where the material ego or the false ego becomes more prominent. And wherever the balance during our material ambitions is towards making it an offering to Krishna, like Arjuna wanting to be successful in the Mahabharata war was to please Krishna also. So one may have material ambitions. However, the consciousness is, or we are being mindful that we have to make this as an offering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is where the false ego gets suffocated. And doing this over a period of time actually brings us over a period, over say a few years, like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. It could happen immediately, as it happened in the case of Prahlad Maharaj. But some of us may be a little pragmatic, and we may say that, yeah, for us it could take 4 years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it takes us to evolve more. So what makes the ego increase is when we run after our material ambitions, or we try to achieve our material ambitions at the cost of our spiritual upliftment, at the cost of being mindful or being thoughtful or being absorbed in our spiritual practices. For example, if we are chanting the holy names of the Lord, but at the same time we are thinking about our material affairs and management of our material affairs, so there is a drag in our spiritual evolution. So it is as if our legs are bound by some weights, and it is although we are trying to make spiritual progress, it is very slow, or it is not happening because of this weight that is there. Hence, Prabhupada would always he would always try to motivate us, Srila Prabhupada, by saying that we have to be conscious of Krishna in each and every activity of our lives. So we can begin that by taking small steps. Already, if one is kind of doing it for 2 hours a day, and one is only doing it in certain activities, then maybe over the period of next 6 months or 1 year, we would want to apply that. We would want to make Krishna the center of some other activity too. Like, for example, while one is driving, one can chant, or one can sing bhajans. One is driving to work, one can sing bhajans, and multitask. One should be focused on the road too, and also sing bhajans at the same time. And that is possible. Multitasking is possible. Most of you are householders. You know how to do it. Be aware of what should be done at work, and also be aware of the needs at home. So you multitask. So I was just giving an example how slowly one can bring in more activities under the ambit of absorption in Krishna. And if one is not able to do that, and unfortunately, if even in our practice of, and even in our spiritual practices, the absorption becomes our material ambitions, they become the absorption that we have, then unfortunately our ego is going to increase. And if we don't have spiritual practices and we are just being materialistically ambitious, then the ego is going to increase exponentially.
Thank you, Prabhu.
You're welcome.
Yes, I think there are two questions. One is Jill Prabhu, and another question before Jill Prabhu. The question is from a devotee, says that how can we get rid of ego in daily life? Good question.
Yes. Every day we should try to dedicate some part of our day to being very spiritually ambitious, like 100% spiritually ambitious, which basically means that that part of the day we just dedicate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we should have a plan that how over the number of years we can find more time to do that. Maybe over the weekends we find more time to do it, or every single day we find more time to do it as we rearrange our material affairs. Is that helpful?
Good answer. Thank you, Prabhu. And now if you have time, that Prabhu, Jill Prabhu wants to speak, ask a question actually. So he's going to ask that question directly to you.
Please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you so much for the lecture today. It's my fortune that I'm listening to a lecture. So the question is that sometimes it happens that when you try to enlighten someone, right, or tell anything to someone, but due to their ego's disappointment, the ego gets more inflated and they get hurt. Like they feel like, oh, why are you teaching me? Like, who are you to teach me this way? So at this point, what should we do?
Thank you for your question. And I also feel very fortunate to be in your association. And I am very thankful to you that you very patiently heard what I had to share. So thank you very much for that. Coming back to your question. Whenever we have an experience where other people seemingly are not receiving our words of enlightenment that we are trying to share, when it appears like that, personally, when that happens to me, it kind of makes me aware that this is the same experience that Krishna must be having with me on so many occasions in my life. because he is every moment offering spiritual enlightenment, and there are so many times in the day that I kind of am not accepting it. And then I think, this is just my personal realization, then I think that Krishna is still so patient and still so caring. So if I understand that Krishna is within my heart and all the knowledge is coming from me, is actually coming from Krishna, who is the Lord in the heart, because he gives knowledge, he gives remembrance. So when I'm speaking with another person, let Krishna in the heart speak to that person. And Krishna is very patient. So if today that person is not able to accept what Krishna is offering, the Paramatma within the heart is offering, then the Paramatma is going to patiently find so many other moments to do that. The Paramatma is always going to try to connect with the other person. So since the Paramatma wants to be patient with the other person, I, as the vehicle where the Paramatma is situated, I may also want to be patient to let the Paramatma work without me causing any obstruction. So least resistance on my part. So patience is a good virtue, I guess. At the same time, we want to be as transparent as possible, so that the Paramatma can transmit that knowledge to the other person.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everyone. If anyone still have a question or can ask.
Yeah, Prabhu, this is it's me, Dhiranidhai. Harikol, Harikishna, Rohinipriya Prabhu. So thank you very much for the wonderful class today. And my question is, Prabhu, this in pandemic situation, and people we cannot have the close associations. So what is your advice? How we can keep those association, get into touch with the devotees, and how any advisable methods there, so that I can follow that.
Dear Nitai Prabhu ki jai. Dear Nitai Prabhu is a transcendental Nardam of ISKCON Scarborough.
Yes. Good question, Prabhu.
Short answer, Dear Nitai Prabhu. I think this pandemic has given us the opportunity to be physically Bhajananandis and virtually Goshtyanandis.
Okay.
So a Bhajananandi is someone who practices solitary spiritual practice, right? And Goshtyanandi is someone who practices, who has spiritual practices in the association of other people, where there's discussion. So on the virtual platform, we can be Goshtyanandis, we can discuss Krishna consciousness. And because physically there are limitations now, we can be Bhajananandis. We can do our own solitary spiritual practices.
Yes, Prabhu, nice answer. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Very good, Prabhu. It's a good learning to Prabhu. Prabhu's class is always very important, and we get good points to carry and take with us. The last one, Prabhu said that, that's nice that virtual is the reality, new reality, that virtual classes are there. So from home, we can attend classes and we can get hear lectures, like exalted devotees like Rohinipriya Prabhu. He's not in Canada, he's not in Scarborough, but we are listening to him, we are interacting with him. So this is the new reality. Thank you, Prabhu, for the answer. And thank you for giving us your valuable time. You are always with Scarborough devotees and giving us the spiritual knowledge to prevent better the treatment. Because you are a doctor. So your words, I see that you are not only the human doctor, but you are also a spiritual doctor. Thank you, Prabhu. Thanks for your time, and we are very grateful to you. Thanks all the devotees. Our classes will be posted on YouTube, Facebook, and WhatsApp, and our website. And if you want to hear more lectures from Rohinipriya Prabhu. Please join on Facebook. He has so many classes, as I said earlier, in English as well as in Hindi. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful time.
So I have a question. Is the temple open today at 3 to 5?
No.
Still every Sunday?
No, that is not over.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. And have a wonderful time. Thanks for your association. Hare Krishna.